I'm going to start with a short presentation about ILIAS Community Plugins, and maybe you are wondering, why does the ILIAS product manager, who should take care of the core of ILIAS, why does he talks about plugins? Yeah, it's right that usually plugins is not in my main focus of work, but we had this discussions about quality assurance with plugins and when they are available and so on in the community now for a longer time, let's say 2 years, 3 years. I know that some of you, as those who are responsible for installations, are not satisfied how long it takes until all plugins are available and so on. And so I thought, and I mentioned, let's say several times, how about creating something like this concept like ILIAS Community Plugins, and where we have a more reliability on the use of plugins. And a while ago I decided, okay, I gonna start, I gonna do a concept, and I gonna do, let's say, suggest a solution. And that's what I want to present you today. And as you see at the end of my presentation, we don't want, it's just not only an idea, but really, we really want to go forward with that. So if we talk about plugins in ILIAS, those of you who are using ILIAS, let's say already 20 years ago, and it's some installations, or some responsible person for these installations are in this room as well. They know that in the very beginning of ILIAS, and even with ILIAS 3 in the very beginning, there were no plugins. We didn't have plugins in ILIAS. We introduced them around 2007, 2008 in the test component and in other components. But for a long time, our thinking was that all what is necessary to realize e-learning should be within the core of the ILIAS source code, and that's why ILIAS is so big. While, let's say, our concurrent, like a tool like Moodle, the core is much smaller, and you use a lot of plugins to create that, or to allow this functionality. So quite an opposite way to realize that. Plugins in ILIAS, I identified 3 main purposes to use them. Well, the first one is you use them to embed third-party software systems. Things like the Etherpad or Big Blue Button or whatever. So external software or third-party software that you want to use within your ILIAS. You want to control the access to these tools, maybe by the role-based access control. You want to present it in the layout of your installation, but you don't want to have the source code in ILIAS. And that's really what we don't want. We don't want all the source code of the tools that we can use also in the source code package of ILIAS, because it's already that big. We don't want to get additional dependencies. So one option here is to create a plugin and to connect it. Of course, today there would be another option. You could maybe use LTI as a standard to connect an external tool to ILIAS by using the LTI interface. But nevertheless, these plugin interfaces, you are free to allow a lot of interaction between this third-party tool and ILIAS, and that's not possible always with LTI, because it's a standard. It has some restrictions. You can do specific things with LTI, but not everything that you can do with a plugin. So one purpose is to use it to embed external software. Another option is to extend existing features and add additional functionality that is not offered by the core feature itself. So one example, for example, is test and assessment. You have a test and assessment with a lot of, let's say, 15 or 16 question types, if I'm right. But nevertheless, maybe someone needs, or some faculty or some department needs a specific question type to support the teaching and training, which is not part of the core. Then you are able to create an additional test question type and provide it in your installation, and then those teachers and trainers, they could use it. So this is another option to extend existing features, existing functionality by plugins. And the third option is, let's say you have, really a very specific use of ILIAS. You need some customized features, customized functionality, which are only important for you, not by others. Of course, you could just make a patch and change the source code, but you know, patch is also, it's maybe not the best way to extend the functionality of your feature. You have a lot of trouble with that. I don't want to mention it at all. Why not creating a plugin and then why not creating a plugin and realize that? And that's maybe a plugin that only you are using on your installation, no one else, but this would be an option for plugins. So if we look at the plugin infrastructure in ILIAS at the moment, we have 20 plugin slots in ILIAS 10. It's quite easy to check that by yourself. Just go to the administration of plugins, extending ILIAS, and then you have plugins, and then you go to the filter, and then you see what interfaces are available. Let's say the most popular ones are the repository object slot. This is the one, for example, that allows you to integrate a tool like Etherpad or Big Blue Button and offer it as a repository object in the list of add new objects. Or the page component that adds a new type of content to your ILIAS page that you use with the ILIAS page editor. Like, for example, what we are offering for you is the chart element where you can easily create charts in the ILIAS page. Maybe some of you know that from the feature wiki, from our minutes, where we always present a number of bugs. And so this is the chart plugin. Questions, as I mentioned, or also another popular slot is the user interface hook, because it's kind of voodoo special hook that allows you different things to get stuff into your ILIAS installation. I asked some of you about how much plugins are you using. You see, we have, let's say, Hochschule Bremen with 6, Helmut Schmidt University with 7, or Fachhochschule Dortmund with 8. But we also have something like somebody like University of Freiburg and Rob with his 39 plugins. Maybe later you can tell us about what you offer, what plugins are you already using. But nevertheless, even if 39 looks incredible for you, and how they gonna update their installations, how they gonna manage that, it's nothing compared what happens in the Moodle world. We have some now contacts to other Moodle installations over this open source LMS connection. Of course, I could ask Nico from University of Regensburg, because they are also running a Moodle installation. But have a look at that. So if you see the difference, for example, Ruhr-Uni Bochum with 113 plugins that they are offering, and or Humboldt University with 89. And then they told me 89, yeah, but there are some plugins which have sub-plugins, so it's even more. So it's really totally different, and I always wonder how are they gonna manage that stuff. Okay, but obviously it works, because otherwise. So that's just to see, we have already a lot of plugins. I think in the plugin collection we have about 130 that are registered.
It's only 100.
Only 100, you throw them out. Yeah, okay. He made, Rob the cleaner, he throw out some plugins. So nevertheless, okay, let's talk about around 100 plugins we have, and some of them are used by a lot of institutions, but it's nothing compared to the world of Moodle. Okay, so with this situation of the option or possibility of using plugins, we have also some problems and challenges that come with that. And it starts with the first thing is that plugin versions are dependent from ILIAS versions. So you can't run a plugin that is offered for ILIAS 9 on an ILIAS 10 installation. It doesn't work, because there's in the plugin itself, there's checks which is the installation that was calling me, and it has to be in the range of, let's say, for a plugin for 9, it has the range of ILIAS 9, and 10 is not allowed for certain reasons. So they are dependent from ILIAS version. Another thing, on the opposite, is that the life cycle of plugins is not the life cycle of ILIAS versions. We have a clear ILIAS life cycle, what I presented you before, before the coffee break in my presentation. But this is different from the life cycle of a plugin. Every plugin has its own life cycle, and it depends from the developer and the responsible person of the plugin when the plugin supports a certain version, when it's available, and so on. So this is not synchronized. So if you want to update to an ILIAS, your ILIAS installation, and you want to also keep those plugins that you're already offering, you are more or less dependent from at least one member of the community of the ILIAS community that is giving an order to the responsible developer of this plugin to say, could you please make an update for this plugin? I'm gonna pay for that so that we have this plugin for ILIAS 10. As long as this is not happening, most of the plugin developers won't do anything. They say, okay, if you're interested, come and ask me, but there are other things to do instead of just updating my plugins. So you are always dependent from that. And that means that you can't update your ILIAS installation until all your plugins you want to use are available, of course. And that delays the moment of updating ILIAS. It makes you dependent from all plugins that they are compliant to your installation. And we at the ILIAS Verein at the moment, we are suffering because we still need one plugin before we could update our Doku installation. We only just use 5 plugins. The 4 others are already in ILIAS 10, but I wait for the last one. And I'm sure it will take a while. Additional problems. I had a look at who is going to update when and what they are using a bit. So you see that, especially universities, there are some of you who are trying really to go with the newer ILIAS versions, try to update quickly to a new version. And then at the end, they also have to pay for the plugin updates to do these updates, because otherwise they could wait for a long time. While others in the community maybe say, well, ILIAS 8 is still running fine, no problem. I wait. No need to push that much. And I wait till all the plugins have been updated, and I can use them, and then again make my updates. So this is also a problem, and it's also a challenge here, that there are some more pushing forward, and then in the end have to pay for that instead of others. And at least some of these plugins are so complex now, so powerful, that updating them also needs a lot of efforts and became maybe too expensive for a single institution to update. Or they say, if we do that update, then we can't pay anything else. You see, if you have to look at the data collection of the plugins, some of them are quite tiny plugins, but think, for example, of the stack question, which is a really huge and powerful question type. It offers, I don't know, maybe Jesus can say, what's the amount of code lines compared to a simple question? I think it's 5 times or something like that. It's really huge, a lot of functionality in it. It's not just only code for nothing. It's a powerful tool. Or think of the Edutik plugin. We are also involved, the Verein, which is also a very big and powerful question type. It's just a question type, but it's so much code. So when it becomes complex and expensive to update it. So if we want to do something, it would be great, let's say, that's my word, it would be great if all of us, and we're talking like I'm not talking as a product manager of ILIAS now, I'm just talking as one of you that are using ILIAS or that want to use ILIAS to support, in this case, our documentation and so on. So it would be great for me if I would know it early when a plugin is compatible with an upcoming ILIAS version, because it would make planning of ILIAS updates much easier. Also, it would be great to know the costs we are faced to early, so that I can make, let's say, more a long-term financial planning, that I know, okay, I want to use this plugin for the next time. It's usually you don't use a plugin just for a year. you introduce a plugin and you say, okay, we want to offer this, and it will be used for years. So you have to guarantee also the availability of this plugin for years. And so I do have to do some financial planning and say, okay, if I use these plugins, what do I need for money to support that? So that would be helpful as well. It would be helpful if those costs could be shared among others. So if we say, let's say Rob and Nico and me, we are using this plugin, and we both three need them, and then we share, we make fund sharing, and so it's only a third for each of us, and we could invest money in updating other plugins and so on. We could, a lot of people, we give a bit, and then we can manage that. It would make the costs for us manageable. And yeah, if we could handle the organization of update and fundraising with the developers jointly, so like in a kind of community where we all commit to do that and say, okay, we are all trying to bring in a part and finance that as a community, then it would financing and taking care and updating the plugins would maybe become easier and also fairer, because everyone gives a bit, and all together we can do that. So, and the idea behind that is something that in the past I already mentioned, that the name, and now it becomes, let's say, a kind of label, the ILIAS Community Plugins. So the concept behind that tries to find a solution that gives an answer to the questions I mentioned before, said what we want to do there. And the main focus, say, it's not about the quality of the plugin. We don't talk about quality assignment. Of course, we have to test plugins and so on, but that's not part of the community plugin, because that's something that we have to handle differently. Here we talk about sustainability, the predictability of the updates, and the distribution of investments. That's the focus on this here. And also that's very important, I want to have a solution or a concept that is good for both users and service providers. I don't want to have a solution that, let's say, push the position of users against service providers, and you service providers, you have to do that, otherwise you don't get the label and whatever. It's not my idea. It's just to say we have both interests, we have both risks and so on, and we try to put that together and create a solution that is feasible and nice to have for us all. So I try to bring together the interests of these both parts together. So the main principles of this concept of ILIAS Community Plugins is, what is a community plugin? It's a plugin that is used by several community members. It doesn't make sense to try to implement this concept just for only just a plugin that's only used by one installation. So those plugins that are used by 3, 5, 7, whatever institutions, they could become ILIAS Community Plugins. Of course, they should be registered in our central data collection, the Extending ILIAS by Plugins data collection, because that is the place, the main place where you see what plugins are available, how to download it, who is responsible, and so on. Tomke will give you an update on this data collection. Happened a lot, and I think very important, because this is the center of our plugin distribution. No need to say, but I mentioned it as well, these plugins have to be published under the general public license. Maybe some of you remember the ILIAS Verein financed 3, 4, 5 years ago, I don't remember exactly, a kind of report by some experts of open source and open education content about what has to be taken into consideration when creating plugins for ILIAS, and they are usually also under the GPL 3.0 because they use parts of ILIAS code and this infects them, so they are GPL 3. And of course, they should be free for download. Now, the next 2 points, this is something new. The thing is that these plugins should guarantee that they are updated for the next 2 versions. So this gives you a certain view the certain predictability that you can update this. This is something that is not existing at the moment. And we need to have the updated version of these plugins short after the 0 version of the newest ILIAS version. So let's say we have now 10.0 published in July, and the idea is no later than 3 months after the first 0 of 10 is there, the plugins for 10 should be available. We don't want to wait half a year or a year to make the update. We want to use let's say the newest version, the ILIAS 10 version soon. Also because then if we wait too long, then the time of really using it and have the benefit of all the bug fixes becomes too short. If you now update to ILIAS 9, you still only have a bit more than 3 months of full support for ILIAS 9, then it's over. Then you get only security updates anymore. It doesn't make sense. We have to get again at the front of the waves with that. And so this is necessary that these plugins are available soon. And from my point of view, that's not witchcraft, doesn't need witchcraft, because if you have planning as a developer that your plugin has to be available at a certain point, you can organize your work and you say, okay, even if I have a lot of core components to take care of, once the stable version has been published, I have time just to update my plugin. So I guess this should be feasible and to allow that and to make them available soon. But how we guarantee updates for 2 upcoming ILIAS versions, and how we're going to provide ILIAS the plugin update within 3 months after the ILIAS release. So that's let's say that's the point. And my idea is, or the idea of that is, so to say, caretakers taking care. We have, let's say, a new concept of someone who's the caretaker, a person that takes care of a plugin. And institutions that are using plugins that they commit themselves to take over the costs for updating a plugin. So they say, okay, I need a certain plugin that's important for me, and I'm willing to commit myself that we are taking over the costs for the next 2 updates. And we are contracting the service providers who are going to do that. So that the service providers know, okay, next year we're going to update we have to provide an updated version of the plugin, and I know I get the money for it, and the university or whatever, the company says, okay, I know I have a contract with the service provider, and I know I get the updated version. But contracts for updating plugins in versions that you don't know yet, because if we talk about ILIAS 11, ILIAS 12, ILIAS 13, ILIAS 11, you already get a certain imagination what will happen. But what will be in ILIAS 12 or in ILIAS 13, you don't know that. You could, if you, let's say, make a risk assessment, you have to say, well, I don't know, maybe update costs 20,000 euro because I have to take everything in consideration. Could everything happen? So let's say contracts based on a lump sum to say a fixed cost for this cost, I will get updates for 2 years. That won't be possible, I'm sure. But how about, let's say, buying an amount of hours of workload at that service provider and look what will happen, and then see, okay, maybe we need a bit more, or we have bought too much and can use it for something else. Then it's less risk for the service provider, and you still have this chance to get a contract with them for a reasonable price. Because let's say if the risk is too high, the prices would climb don't know where, and no one will be willing to invest that money, or it could even justify costs like that. So I think that could be a concept that might work if we are a bit flexible, and if we don't say, "What I want this clearly, and if I don't get it, then I don't do that thing." That's maybe a weak point of the concept, but if you have a better idea, I'm open to that. But at the moment, that's my suggestion. So what would be in the end now the requirements of such an ILIAS community plugin? Plugin is free for download. Plugin source code is published under GPL 3. We have a bug tracker. A bug tracker is offered so that if you have a problem, there's a bug tracker clear where you get into the issues of your plugin. It's registered in the plugin data collection. We have one person at least that volunteers as a caretaker of the plugin, that the person that is pushing the update of the plugin. It's, from my point of view, in 95%, it's not the person who is developing a plugin, because this waiting. Okay, if there's something or the server, but I'm willing to do the update, but it's not my job to organize the money and to organize the community. This needs to be someone who's using the plugin and needs it, because he or she has an interest in it that this plugin is available. So one person volunteers. We have an assurance that the update of the plugin for the next 2 upcoming ILIAS versions is clear, and the update should be made, or the updated version should be available at least 3 months after the first 0 version. And then we want to identify those plugins. And the thing, what is the idea here is just to give it a label. ILIAS Community Plugin becomes a label that is offered by the ILIAS open source e-learning. Well, because it's our community, and to be honest, I have a strong focus, of course, of our members, because you are all, most of the universities are members in our ILIAS society, so it's something that we do for you as a service for our members. And we are labeling these community plugins and say, okay, this is one fulfills all these requirements. And if you have a plugin that fulfills the requirements, then there's an address. You just send a mail to plugincertification@ilias.de, and then we check it. And if it's okay, then it gets the label and we identify that in the data collection, which we extend with this information. Of course, the certification has to be done every year, because we have to check if it is, again, in 2 years. And we do the entire process for free. It's just for members. We don't charge money for that. Let's say, it's not that much bureaucracy to do that, so it's feasible. It's not like what we start in the very beginning of the plugin, when we offered plugins. We really tried to implement a kind of quality control process, and I stopped that after I noticed that I needed to made assessment for a plugin. It was already, let's say, more than a week checking all this stuff, and I said, no, that's not feasible. So that's not possible here, but this, I think, is possible. And we already have a candidate, and luckily it's from the ILIAS community itself, from the ILIAS file itself. It's the Etherpad Lite. Guess a lot of you are using it. So it's a community-used plugin. It's free for download. It's under the GPL 3. It has a bug the bug tracker is at the Mantis, the ILIAS plugins project. Etherpad Lite is registered in the data collection. Fabian Wolf, over there, volunteers as a caretaker of the plugin. He's also it's one of the few situations where the developer of the plugin is also the caretaker. If not, I'm have a look for the caretaker. We're gonna assure that there are updates of the plugin for 11 and 12, and here we are doing it really not based on our ways, but we're gonna do it somehow. So we're gonna do that, and I was very happy that I think that we had the plugin was already available before we had the stable 10. So it's already available. So all requirements are fulfilled. So this would be our first candidate. And it would be quite interesting to see if and how many other plugins would go that way. And if this would be, it's a possible way to, or would be accepted by the community and would give more reliability to the use of plugins on our installations, our community. So that's my suggestion. Any questions? And then I have to hand over to Tomke, who will continue with the topic of the ILIAS plugin. Richard. We stop with short moment because we have some people. I thought maybe I could repeat it, but it may be better if you. So Richard Klees is commenting. Richard, please.
thank you. So also the people on the stream here. I think it's quite a good suggestion to move our understanding of plugins forward. So I think it's a good start. I'm not quite convinced that your model of risk control will work, because basically that risk regarding future ILIAS versions won't just vanish. Someone has to take it. So you say, if we ask for a fixed price by a service provider, you basically turn that risk into a sum, and that would be charged, right? But if you just ask for some fixed amount of hours that you can put into the plugin, the question is, what happens if these hours are not enough to actually update the plugin for 12? So the question then is, who will pay for the rest of the hours, right? And I think this can then only be the caretaker. So basically, I think to have this assurance, the caretaker would need to make sure that this required sum will actually be raised somewhere. And I think that is why the Etherpad plugin is not a good model for that thing, because basically you are trading your own risk to have that plugin with your own resource, Fabian, and also he knows how much risk is in that plugin. And if you divide that role of the caretaker and the implementer, the caretaker can't understand what risk the plugin is actually having, and you don't have any way of negotiating that risk in form of money. So I think basically you could turn down like your wording regarding assurances a little. That would be fine, but I don't think that in this model this will lead to the thing you actually want to say there, that plugin updates are guaranteed for some version.
Yeah, I understand. I thought about that as well, and that's what I said, that if anyone has a better idea, I'm open to it. But I think if compared to, let's say, the fixed price solution, such a solution of, let's say, having an amount of, let's say, of a commitment to say, I'm willing to invest that money in the update, and we see how many hours it needs. And as you said, if it needs more hours, then we still have to get some money, is better than, let's say, waiting until the moment we know exactly what the price is. So
definitely.
That's it. And I think we have this problem of with updating and cost, and how much will this cost also in different in other parts where we often are thinking it would be nice to have this fixed price because I can put it on somewhere, but often it's not realistic, or you have to make the price that high that it's not attractive anymore, because that's just a bit the workload. Maybe we could maybe do some change your word for making clear that we want to commit that. But I think if someone is saying, okay, I'm willing to invest in that plugin, a certain amount of money is already a step forward compared to let's wait let's wait for the chicken rain, or for who's
maybe you just make that sum explicit, like we have secured X hours for updates in release 10 or something like that. Yeah. Or maybe ask for a risk assessment of some service provider beforehand. Like, do you think on a scale from 1 to 10, how possibly how do you think would that sum make sure that the update can be made or something like that? So make that transparent maybe. Mm.
Thank you. Nico? Yeah, okay, we have the last question, and then Tom, you can already come.
Thank you, that sounds very good, but allow me to be a bit critical.
Yes, please.
What's the incentive for example, a plugin author to get the label of a community plugin? They could say, well, nice, but I don't need it. Or do they? It's nice for users, of course.
It's okay. He could still offer his plugin, like he could also say, well, why should I register it in the ILIAS? Yeah, of course, yeah. It's not. He has not an additional benefit. It's just to say, okay, I have community labels. I'm also offering community labels. It's more like say a bit an image thing. That's it.
That's fine as well.
That's yeah. Okay, thank you. Please contact me for more ideas. I would be also very interested by all of you who are providing plugins. What do you think? Let's say I see Jesus, for example, come in contact with me and thinking how about. It's a first version I want to offer now, and I don't want to wait too long and just want to start now. If we see, okay, we have a version 2.0 next year, let's do it.